Paul here from My Perfect Failure, helping you turn your failures into successes and your setbacks into opportunities. What if failure was just a sign that something better was on the horizon? After surviving a near-death experience as a child, Rachel Corpus embraced her identity as an angel incarnate, helping others navigate life's biggest challenges through spirituality and self-awareness. In this episode, we explore her incredible journey, the power of vibrations and energy, and how she helps people align with their true purpose. So if you've ever struggled with self-doubt or wondered about the unforeseen forces guiding your path, this episode is a must for you. So tune in now to recognize the new opportunities awaiting you.
Who knows what Jay-Z, J.K. Rowling, Bill Gates and Oprah Winfrey all have in common? Okay, I will tell you then. They have all overcome failure in one shape or form to go on to gain success in their respective careers. Welcome to My Perfect Failure. Join us as we delve into the world of our perfect failures. We will interview, explore, and discuss how our perfect failures can lead us to success. Join us and tune in.
Welcome everybody to another episode of My Perfect Failure. Today, I'm super excited as I have another amazing guest for you. So our guest today is an angelic channel and spiritual guide who came into physical form to help others live fulfilled lives in deep connection with Source, born with unique gifts to see and feel beyond the ordinary. She's experienced a profound awakening after a near-death experience as a child. Today, she helps people uncover their natural gifts and evolve into their best selves. Outside her spiritual work, she enjoys painting, movies, and spending time with her husband, children, and animals. So a very warm welcome to My Perfect Failure, Rachel Corpus. How are you?
I am well. I do well always. Thank you for asking me that.
You're very welcome. You're very welcome. So I've had the pleasure of having an amazing initial conversation with you where we got on famously. We hadn't met before, but the energy was good. And it felt a very organic, a very natural actually conversation. And so I was excited to do this conversation with you today, and hopefully we'll have many more. What I was keen to do today was to introduce Rachel to the My Perfect Failure community, and your journey is a really interesting and really quite inspiring journey. And I think that the work you do today, we spoke a second ago before we hit the record button, you help people unmask and really reveal who they really are. I said it just before we hit the record button that you had a near fatal car accident as a young child, and I think that's really shaped who you are today. So maybe we can start there and you can give everybody a sense of the accident and how it's really shaped you today.
Thank you for spending this time with me, and I extend that gratitude to your listeners as well. When I had the accident as a child, what ended up happening is I realized I was 4. And when we're children, we don't mask. We don't mask very much yet. We're just being ourselves. But what I realized, even as I was 4, that when my parents and I we had gone to a movie, because at that time my parents had purchased an old theater, a live theater in our small town where we lived. And we had gone to a nearby town to see a movie to celebrate a long day's work. And on the way home, we were hit by a drunk driver. And my little body was severely damaged. And while my body was in the initial few moments of experiencing that damage, lots of brain trauma, I was lifted out and I was taken to the other side. This is the near-death experience part. Well, prior to that, my experience was I was a very spiritual kid, raised religious, Catholic. I didn't know any different. I I I could see spirit all the time. I could play with people who had passed. I would play with spirit children. We lived by a cemetery. I could see animals who had passed. I could see what I thought were angels. Now I call them light beings. I knew the extraterrestrials. They would come into the yard at night. This was my normal. I could move things with my mind. I didn't mask that really because I was so little. When I had my near-death experience, I realized that there was another voice talking, and it was my grown-up voice. I thought, who is this voice? And it's this voice, the Rachel voice, my grown-up voice. And I realized there were two experiences happening, little girl Rachel and grown-up Rachel. And something they told me on the other side was, you will have this juxtaposition between feeling safe in your authenticness and at times your ego will be there, your humanness, and you'll want to mask that. You'll want to hide it because that's the world you live in if you choose to go back. And there were many things that didn't really hit. They didn't really sink in at that moment because the meeting was short. They didn't have much time with me. And they were just saying, hey, this is for later. This is for later. We're reminding you, this is the mission that you took on. If you choose to complete it, you're taking this mission on because if you say yes, you undergo this or you go through it for the many. Everyone feels this way, maybe not as an angel incarnate, but as the person who identifies as this way, but they are afraid to. You know, they want to be the artist, but their parents want them to be a lawyer instead. They want to love in this way, but society says you can't. You get the idea. And so that was my first inclination that we mask. In my near-death experience, they showed me really what it would be like if I stayed there in the seraphim realm, in the angel realm, because I'm of the seraphim rank. That's the type of angel that looks like a wheel, wheels all together made of eyes. Not really the gown with the wings and the halo. No, it's some scary stuff. I can shapeshift. I can look many ways. I can look like this. I've had many human forms. I've had the cheerleader form. I've had the teenager form. I've had the pre-kids form. I've had many human-looking forms. And then I can also look like a pure light being. I remember looking in the medicine cabinet as a child and looking like pure light. I can look like a biblical angel, but my true seraphim look is many eyes because we are watchers. We observe. I go quiet. I'm quiet. I'm shy. I can be an extrovert when I need to be, but it's not my preferred way. We observe, we wait for the message, and then we share it in grace. So I was shown what my mission would be if I stayed there, or I could choose to go back to Earth and complete my mission. My mission is to help people remember that they are not separate from each other. They are not separate from love. They are not separate from source. They're not separate from source, God, love, however they wish to articulate their version of God. They are not separate. And in fact, God is not outside of them. God is within them. And that was how I was given the opportunity through someone's perceived failure that they drank too much and they hit our car. That restarted their life. It also restarted my mission to help me remember why I'm here. And through that, I've helped so many other people, I believe humbly, remember that they are not separate from the people they walk around with, or the trees, or the animals, or the sun. SUN.
Yeah, it's fascinating. Beyond fascinating, what you went through and your story. So thanks for sharing that. Do you think that if you didn't have that accident, you would have known of
Yes.
your gift? You would have known
Yes.
that
Yes.
it would have come to you in another way.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay. And so, I'm trying to understand, and I'm very curious as well. So I'm trying to understand. So, as a 4-year-old, as a young child, processing everything that you went through, what initially I was thinking when you initially gave us that lovely description of what you went through, my initial question was going to be, were you kind of scared to 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 be given those insights into this is your gift, you're an angel and you're here to help people unmask, you're here to serve. So that my initial question was going to be, were you scared? But then I was thinking, well, because there was almost two things going on. You were obviously in the physical side, but then you've got the spiritual side. So the spiritual side, I'm guessing, understood what was going on. So maybe that's the reason that if you weren't scared, maybe that's why you weren't scared. That's a convoluted question, but I'm hoping you can pick the bones
I
out.
get it. I was not scared, which also surprised me. I remember I have a cool answer for that because what was shocking to me, and I remember the moment of this shock, when I heard the adult voice and I realized it was me, there was this moment of awareness. And I think they gave it to me. They, meaning the angels that were guiding me, who I've always known to be my guardian angels. Those angels that were walking me through this experience, it's like they tapped me or something. They tapped me somewhere up here. And in that moment, I knew my 4-year-old human self was present, involved in this, but I was experiencing this as a fully developed angelic being. And that's why I remember this so well. I'm not remembering it as a 4-year-old with a 4-year-old brain that would forget memories. And therefore, everything they showed me was, oh, well, that's where I'm from. Oh yeah, that's my locker. That's my house. Oh, that's right. So there was nothing for me to be afraid of. I was looking at my job description. Oh, thank you. I remember. Thank you for the refresher. Thank you. And then there were times in our meeting that I would flip into my 4-year-old self and say, wait, will I still get to play house? Oh, wait, what about that friend? And then they'd say, of course, of course. And ultimately, the reason why I came back was because my 4-year-old self flipped back in, and I remembered how sad my mama would be if I didn't come back. And as soon as that happened, I was back in my body.
Okay. So you were back. Okay. This is fascinating, by the way. So you were back. So that accident, you went through so much just in terms of experiences and in terms of understanding like your mission. And there was beyond the physical side of you, there was something else that was probably equally or more important because you were going to come back to serve. So when your child, your childhood, did that feel like a heavy responsibility, or were you able to separate childhood to your mission?
My childhood was heavy, but it didn't feel like a mission. I many times in my life, I didn't know that what I was going through was my mission. I didn't realize I was clicking into my mission until I said to God source, I'm ready to do this purposefully. I'm ready to do this with intention. Until that point, until my free willed choice, where I said, all right, let's do this. Until that point, I was having experiences that I thought were totally for me. Well, I didn't even think that. I was just living. So I was experiencing human trauma, human joy. Now, when I look back, I realize, oh, okay, that was all part of the mission. And it was for me. Two things were happening at once, but by no means was I a little child thinking, oh, this is happening for the mission. I get it. No, 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 not at all. I was just being a kid.
Okay.
I was just going along for the ride.
Okay. And so many questions I have. It's just like, what questions should I ask? There's so many I have in my head. So the one that comes to mind initially is family, people that you had close relationships with. So generally, for most of us, it would be family. And as a young child, it would be school friends. Were you able to convey what was going on to your nearest and dearest and school friends? Or did you choose who you, if anybody, that you would convey, what was going on as a 4-year old and as a growing
Yes,
child?
great question. I was advised to share with a few people who I was. And so I did, and they advised me when to share it with them. And so I had a ballet teacher, Barbara. She's in the spirit world. I shared with her, and she became my mentor. She always knew, and she kept me safe. And she's the one, she was Jehovah Witness. And no, Christian Scientist. Sorry, I said that wrong. Christian Scientist. And her beliefs in my small town, where there were basically Catholics and Methodists and a few Lutherans. She was the one person in my town who could stretch my belief system a little bit, but she would just ask me questions. What do you think about that? What do you think about that? And I'm now jumping to about 7th, 8th grade. And I could say to her, this is what happened to me. What do you think of it? And she would say, I think that's wonderful. And she never said, I don't believe you, ever, ever. And she would hold me, and she could see my light. Literally, she could see my light. I was advised to tell her, and I did. And then my grandma Walker, she was a very religious person. And I knew when I went to the other side as a 4-year-old, they showed me that her brain would change. I didn't know what that meant at that time, but she ended up having Alzheimer's. And they said, when she gets to that state, I will be able to show her, not tell her, that I'm an angel. And I showed her, and she clapped. She clapped. And so she was able to affirm that or hold space for me. It was only those two people that I could tell until the time when I could say to people, really this time in my life, I am an angel incarnate. Now I tell everyone. There's no one that I have not told. It's just who I am. When I was growing up, I kept it quiet for the sake of others because we lived in a very small town, and I didn't want others to be in a position where they had to defend me. And I didn't want to be put in an institution for mental health. I have access to all of my other, I call it my data, my other lifetimes and my parallels. I always have. So I would get glimpses of what's going on in the other versions of me. And those aren't pleasant. I don't like shock therapy. I don't like things like that. And so, and they have never been helpful to me. So I made a choice with my guides who and when I would share this with. They've guided me quite well with that. So I've not experienced any persecution or shame at all. And when I've had any sort of pushback, it's been to help those people on their journey.
Okay.
That's just where they are.
Okay, fascinating. So for people that are thinking, what is an angel? How does that manifest itself? Maybe you can break that down for us so we can
Yeah.
get a bit of a feel for that.
Yes. There are a few types of angels. There are earth angels. There are angels incarnate. An angel essentially is a messenger of source, God. And we are here as an extension of God. And we are made of God's light. Remember, we're not talking about a religious God. Religion is lovely when it's done well. Religion is the rule-based structure that man created to try to explain God. And if we look at the Bible, that was even written 500 years after any real action occurred. So there's some wonderful literature and poetry in the Bible, but that is religion. We're talking about the spirit of God, the true essence of God, and we are the workers of God. You could call us the gophers, the go-getters. We do the legwork. We are the pure spirit of God, and we can shift into DNA. We can go into form for God. So things like, if it is not someone's time to die, but they are in danger, we can be told to show up. And someone will say, well, someone saved my life and I turned to thank them. They were gone. Angel. We can be instructed to do that. We can give messages. We are the messenger of God, and we do that without interjecting our ego. We will give pure messages from God. So if I were to say to you something about your life that's directly from God, I wouldn't be in it for anything that I'm supposed to get from it. I hope I'm articulating that well.
Yeah, I think I get that. I get it. So you're not doing it for your own benefit. You're doing it for the person that you're serving at that time.
Correct. And that means that when we take on this agreement, especially someone like me who is in this mission for my whole life, the reason why I took a lot of time before I said, okay, God, let's do this. It's because I wanted and needed a lot of time to do my self-work. I needed some time to work on my personal ego because our relationship with God is reciprocal. As we grow, God grows. And in order for me to be able to give messages to people without inflecting my personal stuff, I get to work on my own stuff first. So I'm not projecting. And that's a gift from God. So I get to sit with God first and say, God, put me in a place where I am perfectly aligning with you. Put Rachel ego self over here and align me perfectly with you as Rachel the angel. And let me do my work with you. So in this interview with you, if you're asking me questions about my childhood, I'm in a different emotional space. When you ask me about the angel stuff, I go into this lane. So back to your question, there are angels incarnate who are absolute angels, and then they were born through humans. And so my parents are the vessel through which I came to this earth. I love them very much, and I love my ancestors. My spirit belongs to God. Then there are earth angels. Earth angels, their lineage goes all the way back to the beginning, where there was a time when there were some angels that were instructed to oversee some humans. They fell in love with the humans and mated with the humans. And from that, there became a hybrid generation of half human, half angel. That created the earth angels. From that, just a little history. In the Bible, we call those the fallen angels, but that's mismarketing. There are no fallen angels. God rehomed those angels, and the Bible talked about them as lower angels or fallen angels, and that is actually incorrect. God created a home for them, and that's where the earth angels, that's like their moms and their dads. The fallen angels, they're not fallen. So earth angels, angels incarnates are the two types of angels.
Okay. And so my I guess the obvious question I have, what type of angel would you describe yourself as?
Angel incarnate, pure
Okay.
angel.
Okay.
Mhm. And then
Okay.
the other types of angels would be the angels that are not currently on earth. They are the ones that are in the angelic realm. And there are levels of angels like the cherubim, the seraphim, the archangels. And they're the ones that are simply not incarnate at all. And they're in the angelic realm.
Okay. And in terms of that, forgive me, you might have already said this in your answer, but in terms of how the decision in terms of what type of angel somebody is, who makes that decision? Is that God makes that decision?
Um,
How's that made?
I would say, I don't know, whoever creates us, source creates us. And also, I can choose to experience a different level of angel if I wish. It's all free will.
Okay.
It's not a graduating process by any means. We're all equal. If I want to have an experience as a cherubim, I can. The only thing is, I wouldn't be able to create myself as an earth angel because I'm not half human. I guess that would be the only thing maybe I couldn't do, but I guess I'd have to ask about that.
Okay. Okay. And in relation to, I guess, serving as an angel, well, actually, I'll phrase it slightly differently. So, in terms of you're serving when you serve, how do
Mhm.
you choose who to serve and when to serve? Is that
Mm.
divine intervention, or do you consciously choose, or are you choosing people that really you understand need you?
Mm. Gosh. It's so by this point, it is it's a conscious choice, and I know that God is involved and I know my angels are involved, but it's so easy and fluent to choose. It's almost, it feels the same as, oh, I feel like strawberry jam today. It's that easy. So if I have someone come to me that wants help and it's not a vibrational match, I just know.
Okay.
And then the next step would be the angels would help me know who is the right match. But really, what would happen would be those people who are not a match would never find me in the first place. So
That's
everyone
the
who
magic.
finds me, yeah, they're a match.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So it's almost previously ordained for it to happen. So
Yes.
there should, I guess, seldomly be a disconnect where there isn't a fit because it's preordained that matches
Correct. Yeah, it's all
will
vibrational
yeah.
frequency. Yes.
Okay. Okay. So fascinating for me for, I guess, when you don't when you're not familiar with something, it always brings curiosity to the table. You're always curious because you hear about these things, but you have, speaking for myself, you have little or no knowledge around this. So you're really, so thanks for filling in lots of gaps there. And so I'm just curious around, we spoke, when we had our initial conversation, we spoke about church and about you going into that space. And I hadn't realized until we spoke that actually when you went into the church, you actually rose up I guess the hierarchy, and were doing incredibly well in that space. And was that in line with your role as an angel?
Yes.
Okay, but
Yes.
maybe you can expand for everybody who doesn't know what you're doing in the church, and how there was alignment with, your spirit as an angel and what you were doing in the church.
Yes. So one of the things I was shown on the other side was that I love the church so very much. And I was shown that I would be given the opportunity to stay in the church and be a teacher, and that it was important that I had chosen to be gendered female, and that would lead to my, partially one of the reasons why I would in love leave the Catholic Church, because there wouldn't be a role for me as a woman that would feel as empowering as what I would need. I wouldn't be able to serve as a leader. I didn't want to be a nun because I wanted to have children. And they showed me that I would be rising into a position where I'd be able to make changes to the structure. And so I didn't know what that meant then, of course, but how it played out was I ended up creating roles for myself where I was writing curriculum for children and families. And then, so I was in big religious churches. I mean, population big. And I was writing religious curriculum that was actually spiritual, but it wasn't naming the spiritual. It was helping people expand in a way that was very comfortable, and helping them ask questions and have conversations where they hadn't felt safe to ask questions before, especially around sacraments, around things like baptism, where perhaps, for example, baptism initially teaching you must be baptized to be in family with God, but then asking the question, but what if you weren't? Are you still family with God? Does God love you even if you're not baptized? Starting those conversations like that. Will God love you anyway? Perhaps you already came in worthy. And helping them become closer to God and build a personal relationship. As I did that work, it also drew out from the woodwork a lot of ego from people around me, and probably my human self as well, if I remember correctly. It was very difficult. A lot of, who are you to be doing this work? Who are you? At the same time, my psychic gifts were growing. And I was told to keep that quiet, keep it quiet, keep it quiet. But my angels are saying, don't keep it quiet. This is part of the agreement. And as that was growing, I let it grow. And as my gifts were growing, I became less of a fit to religion, but I still went to seminary. I still went, became pastor, ended up working in serving a spiritual church. That was wonderful, but it still was too structured, still was not as intimate a relationship with God as what I was shown it could be. And ultimately, what I've been shown is if it works for people, if it works for the individual, go. That's wonderful. Find what works for you. And it's lovely. I don't want to disclaim what works for people. What I was shown was there's a lot of room to grow in the structures of church, even when it's done well, because people are getting lost in it. And there's an opportunity to begin healing at the root system of the churches. It's an opportunity. We're giving an opportunity for many structures that are not dying, but they're starting to break apart. And with anything breaking apart, anything beginning to fail, doesn't mean death. It means opportunity. And that people who had claimed that they are the only ones who are there to lead, that's the structure. Like, you can only give a sacrament if you're a priest. That structure is dying, because that's the part that needs to die. They said that's the part that needs to go away, because it's for everyone. Everyone is sovereign. Everyone should have the ownership, the power to hold hands with God.
Yeah.
So, yeah, when I went into the religious part of my life, I was shown that it was excluding people, and I was brought in there to bring the exclusivity out and show it and say, okay, this is something we need to look at. I wasn't there to solve it. I was there to hold a flashlight to it.
And I guess that if people within the traditional church, when I say traditional church, I guess every institution will have a traditional element to who they are and what they do. So within your church, where you're saying, actually, we're not that inclusive, maybe we can be more inclusive. Clearly, for the tradition that exists within that church, that would have been probably a stretch that they probably weren't comfortable with, because I guess sometimes I guess we all can relate to this. When people bring stuff to the table that we don't want brought to the table, invariably we don't take it in the spirit that it's given. Our ego kicks in, and we feel that it's probably a slur on us, as opposed to taking it within the spirit. Actually, nothing of the sort. This is an opportunity for us to evolve, and I guess that happens all, across churches and institutions. And did you feel resistance within the church where people didn't understand or take it within the spirit that you were giving them that message?
Well, what's interesting is my message never made it to the church. It wouldn't go beyond the head pastor and the staff.
Okay.
The fear was so great. And so I gave it back to Spirit. I said, I hand this to you. And sometimes that's the best we can do. We can give it back to God and say, I've done my part as far as I can do. I in love, I hand this back to you. And I will try my best in another timeline. Show me when I can help again. Because if I would have kept pushing, my ego would have taken over and I would have been unsafe. And we're not here to be martyrs.
That's really interesting. So you have
If I would have stayed, Paul, I would have turned the church against the head pastor. I didn't want to do that, so I left in grace.
Okay, that's really insightful. So would all angels act in that respect?
Yes.
They would. Okay. So they understand that they're not there to cause division. And if any type of division is just a word I've come to, there might be other words that better describe that. But if there's any division or conflict or essentially people aren't understanding the opportunity that you're or the enlightenment that you're offering, if it's not getting received in the right way, then at that point you think, okay, this clearly isn't the right time. So I step away, and if there is a better time in the future, then I will pick up where we left off.
Yes, because if it's not happening, then obviously there is a better time. God is creating a better time. Obviously. Excuse me. You can see that I still have hurt there because my throat. You can see
All
as a
right,
human,
okay.
Rachel, I still have it. Ouch. I still get to work on it, but angel self, obviously God has a better time.
Mm.
So angels, we in peace and grace, we don't step back, we expand. Okay, what is next? We will wait. We'll open the timeline and wait. But as Rachel, the person, hard.
Yeah. So you left the church and now you serve people.
Yes.
So what I'm keen to do is before we hit the record button, kind of we spoke about, well, I guess I referenced the fact that you've left the church. Now you're doing all this wonderful work. You've got all these amazing clients. You're helping them. You're helping them remove the mask and actually be themselves. What's that journey been like? And have you evolved? Has there been evolution in your journey in terms of who you are as an angel, or who you are as an individual? What's that been like?
Oh, heaven on earth. Because once I was out of the religious structure where I felt that I knew I was masking to, hold that timeline of whatever needed to be held. I was holding space for the church because they weren't ready, which meant I was not being authentic until after hours. See, after hours at the church, well, then I was seeing clients, and that felt inauthentic. Felt like I had two lives. I wasn't holding back. They knew what I was doing. I don't tell lies. They knew, but still, there was this on and off switch I was doing. And so literally the day that I left, I said to God, all right, God, this is what we've been waiting for. So fill my calendar, prove it. Within that week, I had tripled my salary from the church, tripled it. On paper, on my calendar, it was full for the next month. And it's been that way ever since. It just keeps growing and growing and growing because now there are no limits. I'm not working for anyone else. So I don't wear a mask anymore, and no one is asking me to. So even though I have children in school, they fully embrace what I do. I'm not doing anything that harms them or would embarrass them. I'm being fully authentically me. I work out in the open. It's been wonderful. And just as we spoke about before, I'm in an energetic match with all who come to me. So I don't have people coming to me who are trying to trick me or embarrass me. It just doesn't happen. And plus, who would pay for that? Who would pay my fee for an hour to just try to have fun with me? No, nobody's going to do that.
So typically when your clients request an appointment, what typically are they, is there a specific request, or is it very different depending on who your client is?
We most typically seem to work on subconscious beliefs, limiting beliefs that they have brought in from their ancestors or from trauma from their childhood that is stuck somewhere. So their conscious mind is doing a great job. They feel that they are ready to build their lives, but something's getting in the way. And through connecting them with their angelic team, we can go into their other lifetimes, whether that's parallel or past, and also look at milestones in this current lifetime and build processes simple processes to help them get into that subconscious layer, pull out that stuff, get it out, rewrite it or erase it. We do a lot of that work. That keeps coming up lately. And I also am hearing from a lot of people that they're ready to own what's theirs and pull apart what's theirs and what's not theirs. So people who are really in love with their spouses and they would like to stay in that relationship, but they're tired of carrying that person and they want to know how to navigate that. So they want to get guidance about that. I do mediumship, but less and less of that is coming up, which I like because it's not my favorite thing to do. I will do it, but it's not my favorite thing. I really prefer to work with the angelic realm. It's a lot of people coming in to build their best life, their best timeline. A lot of people are interested in the multiverse and how to blend timelines.
What does that mean?
Not
Multiverse.
so the knowing that there's a version of Paul and Rachel talking right now, and also you and I are up a frequency, and there's another version of us somewhere where you're wearing a red shirt and I'm wearing a black dress, and that universe has some slight differences. And what's going on in that universe, what wisdom in that universe could help us here. There are all these other versions. And, in that version, I don't have children. Okay, why? What can that, let's go into that. And it's like turning into that TV channel. When did that version of you start? Why? What's there to know? And if it's good stuff, how do we copy that, paste it into this timeline? It's quantum physics. It's what it is. We can do the same thing with past lifetimes when Paul was in the 1920s or with the Mesoamericans. We can do the same thing. We do it vibrationally. So I can both do it for you and also help you know how to do it for yourself. My goal is to have people not need me, because we all came in with this ability. We've just forgotten because we've incarnated so many times.
I'm thinking about your clients. The discovery for them must be pretty phenomenal.
Yes, life-changing.
Yeah, life. And what's it like for you? Is there elements of this? So if a client comes to see you, and every client will be different. Everyone's got their own story.
Mm-hmm.
Is there discovery for you when somebody I'm presuming you've never met them before, books an appointment and you go through the process with them, and then so it might be self-esteem or it might be limiting beliefs. So they might have some limiting beliefs about a relationship, a career, it could be any number of different things. And then you go through the process with them, and then you're able to tap into their childhood, or it might be a previous life. I'm not sure. What's that like for you emotionally when you discover these different things and you're helping people move forward?
Well, I don't feel it emotionally because I'm the observer. I'm not the participant.
So you can separate emotions.
Absolutely. Yeah. I'm holding, it's like I am I'm very much outside of them. So I am the liaison, and I'm in a vibrational space where I'm with them and their guides. My ego, my Rachel self, is somewhere over there observing. I can hear my voice, but there's data, PDF files, hieroglyphs, vibrational frequencies all around, and then their angels will light something up and I pull that thread. It's an hour of that. And then when it's done, I don't remember anything.
Really?
So we record everything and I send it to them. And then the deal is when they come back for another session, if they want to go back to anything, they mention it and then their angels will download that back to me. So I really don't have any emotional response to it. The only time I remember anything is if something that is in common that is really striking to me. Maybe they've lost a child and I've lost a child, something like that.
Okay.
Only then, and even that's rare that I would even remember that. If we have, I have a mindset luminary program, and in those sessions, I'm more involved. I use things that I've developed personally, processes that I've developed. I remember those sessions because I'm more involved. That's a different thing. But yeah, and I find all of those sessions to be very life-giving and joyous. I don't get tired. Yeah, it's the opposite. I think they keep me young.
Yeah.
Love it.
What's it like at, say, if you go to a dinner party and you meet somebody and you tell them this is what I do? What's that like having to explain? When I say having to explain it, do you feel that some people get it, some people don't?
No, I drop it the same way as someone would say I sell insurance. I say, well, to be honest, I don't always say I'm an angel incarnate because people don't always understand what that is, but I will say that I'm a spiritualist or I'm a psychic medium. I'll read the room. I'll see where everybody is. And I really do that for everybody else because I don't want to suck up the energy from the room.
Yeah. And most of us do that in some regards anyway, when we go to a dinner party or I don't know, some sort of event, and it's clearly, it's one of those template questions, what you do. If you don't know something, what you do for a living. And some people don't want to say I'm in sales, because sales can mean different things.
Right.
So dependent, because there's lots of different types of sales, lots of types of different industries.
Yes. Sometimes I just say I'm a counselor. Sometimes I even do. I'm a spiritual counselor. And sometimes I can say I'm a pastor because that's true. I just read the room.
Okay.
I'll say I'm a mother. I'm a mom.
Okay. So, this podcast, My Perfect Failure, around failure, it's around failure and the opportunities that exist within that. So I was curious, but when we had our unrecorded conversation, you gave me some lovely insights into that. So I was keen to get your thoughts around that everybody else can hear around failure and maybe how that relates to maybe even clients that you have seen or could see in the future that may come to you because maybe they've had a job that maybe they've been made redundant from, and it's impacted their limiting beliefs. Do you have any thoughts around failure in those types of circumstances even?
Yeah. Every time there is any sort of a loss or an ending, Archangel Azrael. Now, archangels are not limited to time and space. So they have this ability that in the human realm is not really understood, but he can expand and help anyone at any time, all at the same time. And he has taught me, it's one of my greatest mentors. He has taught me that in our darkest times, we are invited to not ignore our feelings. Don't feel like we need to hear our relatives say, well, that's because something's better is coming. Something better is coming. We don't have to go saccharine sweet on ourselves. It's okay to feel dark. It's okay. It's okay. But don't personify it. It doesn't mean that you're a failure. He's taught me that when you don't get a job or the job ends, it's because you are ready for the next opportunity. The failure is a perception. You are not the failure. It's a mismatch. It's a vibrational mismatch. And that is a good thing because your vibrational match is finding its way to you. And Archangel Azrael is the one in place to help your personal angels find that for you. So while they do that, pay attention to your authentic feelings. Cry, be angry, be happy that you're out of that gross place, whatever it is. Enjoy that, let it happen so that they don't fester into mental health issues later, or a physical thing like an ulcer or headaches. Feel that. That's your active assignment. Actively wait, feel your authentic feelings while your team, your holy team, your angels, your ancestors, your peeps on the other side, well, they work on the next step for you. And the next step is going to be, well, when you're done feeling all your feelings, or as you feel them, well, then you're going to get, well, okay, now I'm going to open my computer and look online. What's my next job? Or someone's going to ping you and say, hey, I heard about this. How are you doing? And we're hiring. The next step will come to you, but only if you're authentic with your feelings. But it's not you failing. There's something better that's growing.
Yeah, no, I love that answer. And as you were describing it, I was thinking about the vibe. I'm sure it'd be interesting to get people's thoughts on this, but I think that when maybe we get made redundant or we lose a job, I think invariably, I think sometimes in my experience, there is, in hindsight, the alignment has shifted.
Yeah.
The alignment has shifted. And on reflect or in hindsight, the reason that I love your answer and I picked up on that is that I would imagine there's a lot of people potentially listening now that can think, actually, yeah, the alignment did shift. And although at the time I wasn't ready to accept that because maybe it wasn't my decision, maybe it was somebody else made the decision, but actually on reflection, it was the right thing to happen because
Yeah.
it didn't, the job didn't feel like when I joined, it didn't feel like when I was halfway through, it didn't feel like when I was 3/4 of the way through that particular duration. But towards the end, not quite sure I was ready for a move, but I guess ego kicks in.
Blossoming out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I guess so in relation to us accepting when it is time for a move, do we have to manage our ego? Because ego invariably, I guess ego, to my mind, wants to be in control.
Often to protect us,
Yeah.
our
Yeah.
lovely ego,
Yeah.
our best friend and our worst enemy, depending on the moment.
Yeah. So ego, when you work with clients, do you have to manage your clients on their ego? help help them maybe just be more aware of your ego and how it can work with you and how it can work against you.
Yes, because a lot of people aren't even aware that we have an ego. A lot of people just, go along in their lives and they hear their internal thoughts and they think that that's them, but we are actually not our thoughts. Our ego is something that we design before we're born, before we incarnate. That is our little self. So we have our higher self, our God self, and then we have our ego. And our ego is meant to be a version of our best friend, really. But we have to keep our little self, our ego, in check because our ego is meant to guide us and protect us. But our ego can go pretty big. It can turn into like our playground self, can really try to beat people up and even beat us up. Like, what was I thinking? Gosh, idiot, you forgot everything today. What are you doing? No. So we talk to our ego in love and say, okay, this is what I need from you today. You really served me well today. Thank you. This is what I would like from you tomorrow. And really working with your ego so you can go back to the original agreement you had with your ego. This is how we're going to work together. Because your ego can really get in the way sometimes.
Yeah. And you do that. So I'm conscious of time. So we will wrap up. We'll wrap up in a second. But
okay.
So just in terms of that final part about the ego, are we becoming more conscious of that? So when we're able to manage our ego and ourselves, we just get to a place where we know when it's working against us, so we can rein ourselves back in.
Yes.
Okay.
I've
Okay.
seen that in a lot of people. Absolutely. Like, oh, there I go again. Hey, ego, what's up?
Okay. Okay. Amazing.
Yeah. It's like a
Okay.
mini me, like from
Yeah.
Austin Powers.
Yeah. Which I think is a superpower to get to that point where we
Yes.
are aware that our egos working against us and it's not serving us in the best way. But if we've got that conscious tool or awareness where we can actually rein it back in, then obviously it can work a lot more powerfully for us. So I've gone way over time with you, so I do apologize.
That's
So
okay.
for people that would like to work with you, want to find out more about you, what's the best way for people to get in contact with you?
All right. Well, a free way that they can get to know me and my journey and learn some spiritual ideas from the angelic realm is I have a podcast that's very special to me, and it's called Angel Talk, and it's on all platforms. I'm really proud of that. And then if they would like to work with me one-on-one, the best way to get a hold of me is my website, and that's my name, Rachel Corpus. My last name is spelled like Corpus Christi, Texas, rachelcorpus.com.
Okay, amazing. So I'll get all the links, put all those in the show notes. Very easy for people to learn more about you and, of course, get in contact with you. And sadly, this is the last question for this conversation. Hopefully, we have more. So the last question is the recurring question. So if you could invite 3 inspirational people for dinner, they can be alive or past. Who would you invite?
Here's my answer. Dolly Parton, because I think she's exciting and lovely and kind. Then I'm going to ask Hitler because I want to know how his healing's going on the other side. I want to know what that's like. And then I would like to meet the very first version of me, like in my very first lifetime, the first time I was human, or maybe I was on another planet or something. I don't want to know. I mean, I want to know, but I don't know what that looks like. I would like to see what he or she looks like, my very first incarnation. That's my answer.
Yeah. So Hitler would have to be in his best behavior for that dinner.
Like, you be over there and I'll be over here. Maybe we'll talk through like 2
Yeah.
sets. Like, I don't know, but I
Yeah.
would like to know, like, how's it going for you over there? Where are you? Are you the same as what you were? I'd be curious. I
Yeah.
want to know.
I read somewhere that he, or clearly he became the guy that we all know him as, that he was so this program's called My Perfect Failure. So excuse the pun, but apparently he was a failed painter. He wanted to be a painter,
Yes.
and it didn't, for some reasons, things didn't go the way that he wanted them to go. And I don't know why.
Yes.
I don't know why he descended into the person that he was, but I read that he was a painter.
Yeah, I read that too. I want to ask him questions about how his mother was, and I want to ask him a lot of questions.
Yeah.
I just want to love on him
Yeah.
a little bit.
Yeah. Clearly, some people like him, this is another podcast, another story, but clearly, those people like that ascend down that track, clearly there's a lot of deep work that they needed that they didn't have, didn't receive. I guess they received the polar opposite, and they're probably incredibly challenged. Well, not probably, they are incredibly challenged, and they don't get the work they need. And obviously, these things, beyond things that beyond belief can happen. So yeah,
Yeah.
interesting. Rachel, this has been amazing. Really, from the moment we spoke, I was excited to record this conversation with you.
Me too.
I'm looking forward to having more conversations with you. It's fascinating what you do, and you're doing such wonderful work for your clients. So thank you for your time today.
Thank you. Blessings, and blessings to your audience as well.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. And thank you, everybody, for tuning into this episode of My Perfect Failure. We're always looking to grow the show. So if you're watching on YouTube, please do hit the subscribe button. And we're always keen to hear about things you like and equally things you don't like. So you can find me at paul@myperfectfailure.com, or you can find me via the contact page on the website. So take care for now. Bye.
Thanks for listening to My Perfect Failure podcast. Be sure to visit www.myperfectfailure.com. to join the conversation. Subscribe to our podcast on iTunes or Google Play. Look out for our next episode.